You are listening to NSR, National Scrubs Radio, where nurses, doctors, students, and other healthcare professionals bring you stories from scrubs across the nation. Tune in today with NSR's Derek J.
Hello, everyone. This is Merce on NSR. That's National Scrubs Radio. And this is episode number uno. And I'm super excited to have Ian here, who is a nurse here in San Francisco. Hello, Ian. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Good to be here on this first episode.
I'm excited for you to be here, but I'm kind of nervous a little bit, actually.
Really? Why?
I'm afraid that, like, you're not going to be able to hold the episode and keep it all here, you know.
Well, that's your job. You're the host.
That's true.
You got to carry the show.
That's true.
I'm just here. I'm not the guy.
So, well, you're a nurse, and you've been doing travel nursing for a little bit. How did you get into travel nursing?
Travel nursing. So, like I said before, I was a musician for a while.
Yeah.
And I realized that I really liked touring. I liked being on the road. And that was something that I didn't get. I got a taste of it, but I didn't get to do enough of it.
Got it.
So I think when I was in nursing school and I heard about travel nursing, I was like, oh man, this is right up my alley.
Right.
But most people just don't do it.
It's kind of like being the rock star of nursing a little bit, because you're like on
Yeah.
tour. Like you get to go to different
And
cities and explore, and then like you're like the new guy,
But
and
you
everybody's
also-
loving you.
You also have to take a leap of faith because you're going off.
It
on your
takes some third spacing, if you know what I mean. All right. It's definitely a challenge. You have to be highly adaptable as a nurse, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I totally agree. It's like you're on tour. It's a challenge, but you get to explore, and you have a lot of times, not always, but you have 3 days off. I mean, 4 days off. You're working 3 days a week, a lot of, depending on which state you are. So that gives you a lot of time to explore and do what you want to do. So in these cities, when you were traveling, did you play a lot of music?
A little bit. I would do like some open mics, and when I was in Denver, I had some friends who lived there that kind of set me up with some little like bar shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was fun. But I always tell people with the travel nursing, it's a much better way to get to know a city than to just go visit for 2 weeks. Like you could go visit a city for 2 weeks and you're just scratching the surface, you know. 3 months and you're really starting to dig in. 6 months.
I'm trying so hard not to interrupt you right now, because I always get resistance when I tell people that. But like, you know, if this happens or if that happens, and they're thinking like worst case scenario. What is a worst case scenario? You have a flat tire in the desert or something when you're traveling?
Yeah, the worst case scenario is you get lonely and you go home.
Right. And no, travel nursing in Alaska is a different story. I mean, like sometimes you can be very isolated in certain cities. I totally understand.
Right. Well, then, but you make that choice to go there. You don't have to go to Alaska in the wintertime.
Right.
You can go to Alaska in the summertime and it's sunny all the time. You can go hiking at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, man. That's the best time to go.
You can go to Hawaii. You can go.
But then they'll say, like, there's grizzly bears. What are you going to do about the grizzly bears?
Well, you have a better chance of dying on the highway, on I-5.
What about the grizzly bears on the highway?
Oh, well, that's another problem. But
yeah, so I mean, I will have to say, travel nursing is kind of you're almost like a free agent.
Absolutely.
I mean, you come in, you do contract work,
you're working for multiple agencies if you're smart.
If you're very smart. Because, I mean, some agencies will try to play you if you don't know the game.
And some agencies have better contracts in different regions.
Right.
So you have to figure out, like, where those are. And one of the things with travel nursing is the information online is so minimal, you just kind of have to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Even some of these blogs and stuff, it's so vague.
Right.
You just have to, like, go out there and do it. And after you make a couple mistakes, then you can kind of hone in on...
Now, were you one of those guys that, like, when you did travel nursing, like, say for your first contract or any other contract, that you drove across country and did this whole, like, experience while you drove across country?
I did a little bit at a time. Started in San Antonio.
Yeah.
I didn't have.
I was there too. Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of nursing experience in general, so I had to kind of take what I could get for my first assignment. So I went there, and then from there I went to Denver, and then eventually just kind of zigzagged.
Did you have any scary experiences out there? Like anything that was kind of like oof?
In San Antonio?
That was rough.
Taking 7 patients.
Well, I don't even mean nursing. It could be like as your experience being a travel nurse.
Not really. I didn't have any life or death.
Talking about grizzly bears, I had a different type of bear experience. I did
Was
it.
this in San Francisco?
No,
in the Castro?
Close enough. This was in New Orleans, actually. New Orleans. I don't know how this guy say it in Cajun, but I did like an Airbnb, or no, it might have even been couch surfing. Like couch surfing was like the first thing that was coming up and stuff.
Did you actually do that?
I did it, and I was like, all right, I'm going to be open minded. I'm going to try it, right? And this guy that he says that he was renting out multiple rooms for different people and stuff. Anyways, I go there, and this guy says, "Oh, I'm also." When I first get there, he tells me, "Oh, I'm also a masseuse."
Whoa.
And I'm like,
is he renting this out an hour at a time? That's when you got to worry.
Then he goes, if you're interested, I can do massages too, with the experience. And I'm like, this is when the Moto 8 looks a lot like a better option, man. Like whatever
that
it
was
is.
your red flag right there.
Oh my God, I would never do that again. But you get those kind of experiences, but it's a great story to tell, as long as you come out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
We're still here.
There could be the other side. Exactly. So are you still playing music, man?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Since I've moved away from home, it's a little harder because when I was a travel nurse, I was moving every 3 to 6 months. So you can't really like start jamming with people. So I've just kind of been doing solo stuff. I got a little studio set up that's portable that I take with me. I'll play some open mics here and there and stuff like that. So still writing, still playing. And now that I'm in San Francisco settling down, I'm going to try to reach out a little bit more this year and see if we can get something going.
That's awesome. So do you have any gigs lined up or anything that's outside? I mean,
no.
This is probably going to be a pre-recorded show, so if there's any gigs you want to plug in, I apologize.
Oh, okay.
It's probably going to be later on, but
I am going to Nashville next week, and I might be playing a show there.
I hear there's not that many gigs out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I hear there's
it's a dime a dozen out there. I think I just don't know how hard it is to get in.
Got it.
So
is this your first time playing out there?
This is my first time going to Nashville. So I have a friend that lives there, and he thinks he can get me something. So
see, that's the beauty of healthcare. I mean, like at least with your gig, away from music, but with nursing, is that you probably work only 3 days a week. Most nurses that I'm aware of, and it gives you the flexibility to do what you want in your free time. I mean, imagine 4 days off.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Pretty happy with the decision that I've made, and so far, I mean, you can do so much on your time off.
Right.
It's just, you don't have to have your career just be your passion. Like you see these tech guys in San Francisco and, Google and all this stuff, Apple, and it looks so great on paper, but they work 60, 70 hours a week. That's their life.
And I'm a big proponent of like, you have to take care of yourself first before you take care of others. In the sense of if you're not healthy, it's hard really to take care of other people. So their 3 days a week is kind of like that limit to me in my sense. I mean, for me, I can't talk for everyone else because they can work a lot of hours and stuff.
But you have worked a lot more than that.
I have.
But
how long that lasts?
Right, 3 months, and you pushed yourself to the limit. You found what you could do and what you couldn't do.
That's it. And then there's that cutoff, and that's what scares me about like certain residents or doctors.
Sure.
I don't know what's true. I briefly saw an article about how they want to bring back these long shifts for residents again.
What would that be like? Just 24-hour shifts?
I think it's like 28 hours or something like that. I don't know if it's true. I saw a headline, but a lot of things you see on Facebook recently have been kind of, sketch. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine being a resident and then I get it that you sleep in sometimes during those long shifts, like being on call shifts. I used to date a resident who used to work 24, I think it was like 30-hour shift, 24 or 30 hours. But the problem is like, when you have that emergency middle of the night, that takes away from your sleep. And then you have to get up for morning rounds and everything else. I'm not a doctor. Right. I can't really speak for all residents, but I couldn't imagine my feet, being in their shoes doing that.
Yeah. Imagine you've been awake for 16 hours, on the job.
You're not a robot.
And then you take a break, but then 2 hours later, there's a code blue and you have to get there and be sharp as a tack.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that the person that you want coming to save your life?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a scary situation that I just, my hat goes off to the residents who can do that,
Sure.
We all know the residents who've kind of, some of their choices that they make and everything else, like, wow.
Sure.
Scares me a little bit, but I really feel for the ones that have to put in a lot of hours like that.
Yeah. I don't know how they do it. Even their schedule in general, the 7 days on, 7 days off for even like attendings and stuff like that.
So nursing is not your first career though, right? Like this is a different career for you,
Right.
like a second additional career. So
Yeah.
what did you do originally?
I wouldn't say that I had a career prior.
Starving
I just-
musician, that's what that means.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was a substitute teacher. I worked in hospitality, everything from, serving tables and fine dining to, a doorman, at a nice hotel. Kind of, I always had 2 jobs at least, just to kind of make ends meet. But I was, at the time I was happy because I was playing music and
Right.
touring a little bit, recording albums. So it was fine at the time, but, 10 years later, didn't quite get there. Things start falling apart. Then you got to start thinking. You get in your later 20s. And
Being a gigolo does have its shelf life.
Indeed.
But yeah, I mean, so what was the step that made you decide, hey, healthcare is where I want to go?
I mean, I guess I kind of had it on the back burner for a while, and I did some job shadowing with an aunt who's been a nurse for over 35 years now.
Can I just stop you right there? That's one of
Sure.
the best ways to know if nursing's for you. Like
Sure.
skip trying to get into the school and everything. Shadow someone if you can. Get your foot in the door.
Mhm.
The first time you see blood, something
Yeah.
come out of a trach. Or
Mhm.
if
The smells,
and if
the-
even you can
the
get
sounds.
it close up enough for a one cheek sneak in between the crack, you see something that comes out. If you can handle that, then that
Yeah.
can tell you if this job is for you or not.
And even having a relative who can tell you how it is, how it really is.
Yeah,
After working,
and
in
that's
the
great that
industry
you
for a
had
long
that
time.
network there. So how was your experience, shadowing her?
She actually set me up with one of her friends who was a guy. I guess she wanted me to be with a guy nurse to get that perspective
Immerse.
for whatever. Immerse, just like yourself.
Sorry for all the guys that are out there that are offended by the term MERS, but you know what?
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
I don't even want to get started. Like the term MERS, right? Male nurse, male, was it a male purse? And there's like so many different variations. People think of Meet the Fockers,
Sure.
If you get offended by that, I think that's ridiculous. Like,
I mean, I agree. I mean, it's
like if someone says, like if someone was really trying to make you mad and said, you know what, you're a MERS. Would you get offended? You're like,
I would have no reaction.
Yeah,
to that.
exactly. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And then these guys that get really offended by the term, just let it go, man. It's not a term that's used that often. Just it is what it is. But I love the one like, why didn't you become a doctor? I get that sometimes, or they call me doctor automatically because I'm the guy. I'm a guy.
Yeah.
And it's usually with like an older patient, not always.
Mhm.
But they say, oh, well, why didn't you become a doctor? It's like, dude, I work 3 days a week. I work 3 days a week.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, going back to your shadowing experience with your aunt, your auntie.
Oh, so she was working. She switched it up, and she was doing she was an MRI nurse at that time. So she was working in nuclear med. So she wanted me to see how it was on the floor. So she set me up with somebody. I think it was, what kind of floor was it? It was like a chest pain floor.
Oh, wow,
so that,
that's pretty intense.
So that was pretty cool, and I got
Yeah.
to see that, and I shadowed him for the full day for a couple days, and I was
Right.
like, this is cool. You're working with people, you're on your feet all day, it's fast-paced, constantly learning, things are changing daily. You never see the same thing twice. So I was like, I think I can do this. But I didn't go back to school right away. I still kept playing. I kept playing music for a few
You were
more
still
years.
the doorman at a
Sure, and I
hotel.
had to go back and get all those prerequisites and do that whole thing. But it gave me enough of a push to at least get back in school and start taking those prereqs. And when the time came, when the band thing kind of started to fizzle, and I was like, nobody wanted to tour anymore, and I knew we weren't going to push it. I was like, that's it.
That's
So
it. That was your
I
escape
put
route.
I put in those applications, and yeah, when I found the right school, I was out.
Congrats to you, man, because I think that leap of faith, like I'm going to go back to school. And not just go back to school. I have to take prerequisites again. Like
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that was the worst part. I'd already graduated from a 4-year degree, and I'm going back to the community
Right.
college to take those
When-
anatomy classes that I skipped out on because I had a BS and I didn't have to take those type of sciences.
Right.
I took earth sciences because that's all I needed, that kind of thing. Because I was
Those
a
are-
music major.
Those are the type of science classes that gigolos usually take. You know?
Hey man, don't
Well-
knock it till you try it.
Well, at least you didn't become a masseuse in New Orleans. So.
Hey, it's not too late.
Hey,
Maybe I'll do that.
it's not to make fun of the masseuse down there, whatever happened. I'm just saying it was an awkward situation before anybody says anything. But so now you're here, you're playing music still, and you have a gig in Nashville.
Potentially.
Potentially. All right. So that's the way musicians talk. Like, hey, I got this big promote. It may happen. Yeah. But what's next for you? Do you know?
For this year, well, I don't know if we didn't talk about it before, but I'm per diem right now, so I can kind of work as much or as little as I want. I can work 5 days a week if I want. I can work as little as 4 days a month. So this year I'm going to be doing some traveling.
Got it.
Going to do maybe 6 weeks abroad, Southeast Asia.
That's how long? 6 weeks?
Yeah, about 6 weeks.
So what other career that can you take 6 weeks off?
I have no idea.
Unless you're doing a sabbatical or,
Yeah, I can't even think of
a
one.
teacher maybe. You know what I mean? But can they... I don't want to... Some teachers make more money than the other states and everything else.
Right.
But what career can you just say, hey, I want to throw a dart on the globe and I can go here for 6 weeks?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you have some type of job where you can work remotely, but then you're still working while you're gone.
And a nurse in Alabama or some other state might like, hey man, it's really tight down here too. Like it's not like so different. All states are different as far as what nurses get paid and stuff.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I could be per diem in Alabama,
right?
But I wouldn't be able to travel as much,
right? And it's not a knock on nurses that are in Alabama or any other state as it is, but it just kind of shows you what the spectrum is across all the states.
Sure, and the earning potential in California is about as good as it gets.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the outlier of the country. So I'm totally for raising income for nurses across all the states and everything else, but I will have to say California is kind of like that outlier. It's you can't really put that in the same bucket.
Yeah, and I think some people are intimidated to come to a city like San Francisco because, the cost of living
because they have earthquakes
is ridiculous. That's what my dad says.
Right?
My dad is his biggest fear is earthquakes.
It's the same thing in Alaska.
You live in Florida.
It's hurricanes, man. It's like you know what? This is what I realize about humans is that they will take the worst case scenario and apply it to give them a reason or a boundary for not experiencing. Yeah. It's like the same thing going back to Alaska. Well, there's grizzly bears, man. You know what I mean? Or it's so cold.
They're on the highway.
They're on the highway. Yeah, you better watch out for the bears in New Orleans and Alaska. Yeah.
Now, what about the dire wolves?
Ooh, the gray wolves. That's the one I'd be. I think Joe Rogan talks about that in some of his podcasts. But well, should we say it's a wrap, Ian?
Sure. It was good talking to you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much for coming out. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for listening to NSR, National Scrubs Radio, with your host, Derek J. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit Facebook and Twitter @NatScrubsRadio. We'll catch you next time.